Welcome to the Got Invention Show. I'm your host, Brian Freed, and our guest today is Michael Van Horst. He's the inventor of the push and hang. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks for having me today. It's nice to be here.
Nice to see you, and we've known each other for a while, and I'm happy to have you on the show. So why don't you tell us who you are, what you've invented, and why you invented it?
Yeah. Well, my name is Michael Van Horst. I live out here in California. I've been a realtor for about 25 years now, and through that process of closing on a lot of homes, I would see the same thing over and over. The simple thing that we call about hanging a picture. When you first move in, number one, you can't find your tools. Everything's packed away and you're not really sure what you're going to be able to do, So, and when I would go visit my clients' houses, this was interesting, The first thing we see, because we kind of procrastinate about this, is I would see the pictures lying on the floor, next to the hallway, next to the wall. It would take them weeks, sometimes months to put them up because they just didn't want to deal with the frustration of having to gather the tools, spend the time to do it. And ultimately, it always seemed to come out a little crooked. So, that's really sort of where I came up with my first aha moment, was trying to figure out how to get this easier for somebody to hang pictures on the wall.
And people don't realize this type of issue until it actually is like, you know what? You made me think that I've been in my house for over 15 years now, and I still have pictures I haven't put up yet. Why? Because I'm afraid of if I'm going to go into the stud, if I'm going to put a picture on that's too heavy, if it's going to be level. It's definitely a challenge, especially for the unhandy man that I personally am. And I'm sure there's plenty of other people out there in the same type of situation.
Oh, absolutely. Especially people that live by themselves, they live alone. A lot of people just aren't comfortable with tools, and when you end up finding them, what I found out, it really wasn't all the tools you had around the house, because we still had to go back and do the same thing, manually, literally like we've been doing for thousands of years. The simple thing in our mind about hammer, nail, that's what we've always been sort of triggered to use all of our lives, And once we spend all the time, say, going up to the wall and leveling everything and putting everything on the wall, guess what? We still have to go back and do the final thing of grabbing that hammer, grabbing that nail. Well, guess what? When you put the first one in, by the time you get to the second one, your hands aren't in the same position. So that's why it always comes out uneven. It doesn't matter if it's perfectly level once you start, you still have to go back and do it manually. So everybody would get so frustrated by that, like, why is it still coming out crooked?
And you came up with the solution. So Michael, show us the push and hang.
Absolutely. This is the tool right here. What's really nice about this thing is it does absolutely everything for you. And it literally does everything like I mentioned in a lot of my personal videos. You can literally what I call push, hang, and walk away. So this is how simple and easy this is. It's got a floating handle on one side. That's got indicators on the top of both handles. And what's nice about that, say you got crimps or eyelets on the back of a picture, right, that we hate to line up. Well, you're simply going to line up the first indicator on one of those. You're going to slide it across and look at that. It's preset for you just like that. So you're simply, let me show you how this is going to work while we're talking about this. Why not? You simply turn it upside down. Each one of the cylinders has a magnetic cylinder. So how fun is that? So as soon as you hold a nail up to it, you hear that little click? It already drew the nail in for you. So it's got the nails in for you. It's already preset for you. It's got a bubble level in the center right here. Let me show you just real quick because I've already got it preset. Let me show you how easy this is to use. I'm going to pull this picture. I'm going to pull this picture off real quick, and I'm going to show you that you're going to be able to do this in literally a matter of a couple of seconds. And the best thing is you're not going to grab tools. You're not going to ask for help. So look at this. We're simply going to take it. We're going to walk up to the wall. We're going to make sure that that little bubble center is in the center for you. One little punch-like motion. Look at that. You're already done. Now, you've already put 2 nails in the wall, all at the right angle, all at the right depth. And look at this. Perfectly level each and every time you use it, and it holds up to 10 pounds. It doesn't get any easier. It's just like that. I often tell people, by the time you go try to find your tape measure that you lost, I'll have 10 pictures on the wall by the time you come back in the house.
Wow, Michael, congratulations. That's amazing. You did a super job.
Let me show you another easy thing for this while we're talking about how to use this product. What's nice about this is if you take the end cap off, you just simply clip it off. It'll slide right off for you. Now look at this. Anything around the house that you are going to hang on the wall up to 5 pounds, this is called the mini. You just slide it off. We keep this in our drawer because we use this for everything. Now look at this. Same motion. Take a nail, drop it in there, click, it draws it in automatically. Now look at this. So anything up to 5 pounds, anything that you've got around the house, whether it's a craft item, small picture, whatever, look at this. Less than a half a second, boom, I'm already done. I've already put the nail in the wall. Now I'm just going to walk up and hang it, and that literally took less than a couple seconds. So that's how quick and easy this is. I often say if you can use a stapler, you can use push and hang.
Congratulations, Michael. Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you.
It sounds to me like you've pitched this before.
You know, I've practiced pitching for so long. You know, I mean, I used to enter all sorts of pitch competitions. I talked to a lot of people that I mentor along the way, especially new people coming up. And that's one of the main things I tell them, you know, perfect your pitch. If you can perfect your pitch and try to enter as many pitch competitions as you can, it's not only going to create you to sort of build yourself and your brand, but you're going to be able to learn how to speak in front of people and really get your point across very quickly, you know, because you really only have a few minutes to impress people.
Excellent. So, Michael, you still are a realtor. You came up with this idea. I'm not sure if you, at the time, thought that you were going to be this inventor, but let's talk about when you did have that moment that said, you know what, pictures all over the place, over and over and over again. I keep seeing the same thing, and it even happens to me. So what was the first thing that came into your mind when you did have that idea?
Well, you know, I mean, I struggled with this myself even early on, you know, and I have this sort of crazy personality, A through Z. So I'm really picky about the way I do things, you know. I used to see my father, he used to lay pictures out and actually make a grid. I mean, literally lay them out, measure them, where are they going to go, how much. And I used to say, can you just put the picture on the wall? Just put it up there. But, you know, how I came up with this through real estate is, you know, like I said earlier, when I went by my clients' homes to see how their homes are coming out, you know, they invite me over. Well, I went to this one home, and this lady was by herself. She was actually trying to put pictures on the wall, and I stood there for a minute and I said, "Let me help you with that." You know, so once I got done with that, I said, "Well," in my mind, that was when it sort of clicked. I said, "Gosh, there's got to be a way that people can hang things on the wall that's going to make it easier and simpler, especially people that are by themselves and they're on their own, you know." So that's where it sort of came about, you know. And I started with that idea, you know, of my aha moment of, I said, you know what, I'm going to come up with another marking tool, right, to mark the holes on the wall so you know how to get it on there. And I thought, there's literally hundreds of those out there on the market, you know. And I said, there's got to be a way. Why hasn't anybody actually put the nail in the wall for you? So that was my thought process, you know.
All right.
And, let me show you.
Yeah.
Let me show you just a second. This is why we're talking about this. This is my very first this is how I started this whole process of where it ended up today. When we talked about actually, you know, making sort of a marking tool. This is sort of funny, Brian. These are laser beams, little red. I found out your head is really self-leveling, the human body. So when you put these on, it actually shot exactly where you're going to mark the holes. And that was my first crazy little, you know, spaceship invention, you know, and my wife thought I was crazy. So, you know, we sort of gave that up and sort of moved on, you know, to the push and hang.
So, okay. So you looked around online, in the stores, you were looking for the solution that you kind of came up with. First, it looks like you were coming up with the goggles, but like, how did that evolve? So what iterations did you keep going through to end up getting to where you are? So let's just talk about finding and figuring out if your idea is viable, because there were and there are other types of marking tools. So what made yours feel like you can keep moving forward with it?
Yeah, I did just exactly what you said. You know, I would start going to stores, see what's on the shelf, see what's out there. I would do Google searches. I'd get online, and I always came up to the same end result. You know, these are all tools that allow you to go up, and yes, you're going to be able to have some of them have a bubble level, and they're going to be level for you, and you can actually mark the holes where you want to hang something. But I never came across anything out there that was going to allow you to take that one step further, to make it easier for you. You know, I wanted to make the process simple, so when you pick it up, you're going to finish it out and do everything in really a matter of a couple of seconds or minutes without having to mess with anything else. I didn't want you to go through step 1 through 10. I wanted you to go 1, 2, 3, and you're done. And so when I looked around and I really started doing searches, I couldn't find anything. I couldn't find anything that put the nail in the wall for you. So that's where I sort of evolved and sort of took it to that next step. And then I started, coming up with different ideas as far as coming up with this product. This is my very first prototype of the product, and I often tell people, when you're starting to do prototyping and stuff, it doesn't have to be crazy elaborate, right? I mean, I found these pieces in the garage, piece of wood, I got a knob off a cabinet, and I tried to figure out how am I going to get that to go on the wall with one easy motion for you. So that's really how I sort of came up with it, just like that.
Okay. And as you continue to evolve, whether it's that prototype or the next ones, did you hire a designer, an engineer? What did you do, or how far did you take it on your own?
Yeah, absolutely. I can only do so much on my own. I'm a very hands-on type guy. So I mean, there's so many tools and things I can do in the garage, and I knew I had to sort of start perfecting it, right? How to get it out there so that it's going to appeal to people. I actually had a friend that was a engineer for a major corporation company. They actually supplied these sort of dome cameras that you see in all the stores and in the casinos and things. And so I got with him and I gave him my designs, told him what I wanted to accomplish, and he did all the CAD work for me. So he was able to come up with different design aspects on what I was thinking about, and we just sort of kept evolving from that. This is one of the very first designs that I came up with right there. And it shows you kind of how crude it is, but it sort of gave you the idea of how am I going to get those nails in the wall, So these are actually pieces that we went ahead and we did in actually sort of 3D concepts on the handles, which is another way that's sort of inexpensive way that you can go. There's so much in 3D out there right now. If it's not a truly complicated type invention or product, you can make parts very reasonable and have them done very quickly. So you just get a visual idea of how this thing's going to work, So that's how I sort of came across that. And then we just kept evolving. This push and hang tool was actually 9 prototypes later, actually. And because of my personality, I went way too far with it. I actually made my prototypes when I ended up. I mean, it was really store ready. You could actually take a prototype and use it, and you don't have to go that far with it. But for me, it was something that I had a passion about, and I wanted to really create something that was really going to make sense. And it ended up going, literally from a piece of wood to this right here, But it did take about 9 prototypes to perfect it, and did a lot of studies with it. I would actually go door to door, Brian. I actually made a false, what I call a living room wall. I would carry that with me. I would knock on people's doors and I would have that little demo right there. And I would ask them a question, have you ever had an issue with hanging pictures or putting things on the wall? And, the response was absolutely, so I would do the little demos right there on their porch, and I would get feedback from them of what they thought and maybe how I could perfect it a little bit, or maybe I should, do a metal ruler instead of a plastic ruler. Maybe, how am I going to figure out how to hook up the eyelets on the back and things like that, And from going door to door, trying to figure out, if it's going to, work well with the consumer base, I would actually go to retail stores as well. And you know what? I would set up little pop-ups. Even though my product wasn't on their shelf, you'd be surprised how many retailers would allow you to sit out front when I had a little 4-foot table and I had a little tiny piece of sheetrock, and I would do little demos out there just to get feedback from people walking in and out. And from that, I really took all of that, sort of information and feedback from them, and really got the tool perfected to where it is today. So it really helped. And all these kind of things, you can do without spending no money. I mean, these are things you can just kind of think about. How can I get out there and talk to a lot of different people, not just friends and family, because they're always going to tell you how much they love it. I wanted somebody to tell me they didn't like it,
Well, you definitely, from your outgoing personality and having somebody who you knew to be able to do the CAD drawings for you, to be able to keep testing and having that positive attitude. I'm sure that there were some times during that development that it probably drove you a little bit crazy till you ended up to the 9th prototype to finally have it like, this is it. What did you feel like at that moment? Like, I got it. Not only do I love how it looks and how it works, I brought it around. People love it. They're giving me great feedback. They're using it. You're out there. You're starting to sell it a little bit. What did that feel like?
Oh, it's exciting. I mean, to actually come to an end result on a product that actually people are going to enjoy and really like and use. I mean, it's like no other. You go through this whole process of sort of bringing it to life, and there's a couple of times that I was going to shelve it. I mean, I was almost going to give up, and I thought, and I kept going, and I knew there was a need for this type of product. I didn't know how it was going to be perceived out there, by the public, and once you go along, and I went through, like I said, sort of 9 different prototypes, you are starting to spend money. It is starting to cost you things to get to that next level and get it perfected. And every time you go to the 3D guy, or you go to the metal guy, it starts adding up, and then a lot of times you tell yourself, wow, I mean, is this going to work, or do I need to stop, or do I need to go? And I believed in the product from the beginning. I believed in myself and my capabilities, and I knew that I'm not a guy that's going to give up. I'm going to knock on every door really till I come to the end.
Okay.
And
Good.
And I actually got there with it.
Awesome. Michael, now during the time of getting all this together and starting to show it around, what about your intellectual property protection, your patent? Was there a point where you're like, I better protect it, otherwise somebody might take my idea? I'm at a point where I feel like I'm ready to go. Give us just some quick understanding of your intellectual property journey.
Yeah, I tell you how I had to really ramp that up as quickly as possible. When I got this finished to the level of getting everything perfected with the prototyping, I looked around at how I could get this thing out there and demonstrated. So I went to like my very first trade show, right? And fast forward a little bit, during that trade show, I won the pitch competition. I got picked up by a DRTV company instantly. They were like all over me, right after the pitch competition. I was like, wow, now what? I didn't know anything about patents. I didn't know anything about the process, so I actually, once I left that show, I went back home and I got online and I really started doing some education, pulling up different videos, YouTube, different companies, things like this. And I ran across, a company that helped me get through that process, and I'm sure it's okay for me to mention it, but I landed on Invent, right, which I never heard about them before, never knew about the company, called them when I was actually in the process of this sort of DRTV company, hitting me up, right? And they talked about PPAs and getting started with the patent process, and what kind of needs to take place, and how that first one will, land you that, that first date of action, and you got a year to go through it before you start generating your other patents, So I ended up going through and learning about how to write my own PPA, and I wrote it. Was it fun? No, absolutely not. Your first PPA, trying to write things, is not fun. It's kind of really confusing, And since then, I've wrote every one of my own PPAs for all my products. But so once I got that aspect done and realized that this product is something I think that's going to work, I did dwell into the next step of it. So I worked on my design patents, and got that done, And the design patents are, they're nice and everything, and they're all well and good, but it's really easy to make a little twist on a product and maybe change something up and get somebody else get their own design patent. So, so I knew with the dual stapler, the way it went into the wall. So I went ahead and did the next step and worked on my utility patents. So, and I have another third utility patent coming on the way. So I've got my patents in hand. I went through the provisional. I've got my design and my utility patents. So it was a long process, as you know, and maybe a lot of people don't know, but get started. I mean, most of it's 2 to 3 years behind before you even get that piece of paper in hand. It's a great feeling to have it. But who knows if you're going to be there 3 years later, you even get that piece of paper, right? So it's all about continuing with the process and trying to make your product out there and grow a little bit. Hopefully that it's going to stick, that those patents are really going to come into play someday. But yeah, so I went through that whole process. And like I said, I ended up writing all my own PPAs, and it's a great thing to learn and understand, and anybody can do it. You're going to stumble a little bit, but you know what? Once you do the first one, it's really simple after that.
Good. And you had the prototype, You have your provisional patent application, which will give you the right for a year to say that you're patent pending while you're exploring the market. You were considering and doing the design patents and utility patents. So now you're at a point where I have a pretty good design. I'm really happy with it. I have some intellectual property protection. I kind of got picked up by a DRTV, a direct response TV company. I can rent the rights to my intellectual property and kind of license it to them so they would manufacture it and sell it, and you would earn a royalty, or you would manufacture it yourself. So there was that point where you're ready to go, and what direction are you going to take? So what did you do, Michael?
Well, I'll tell you, when I got hit up with that DRTV company after that first show, I thought I was on top of the world, right? I thought I had it made. Wow, I'm going to be on, boy, it's going to be out there. It's going to be on TV. Everybody's going to buy it. But I tell you what, once I got into it, there's a process with that as well. They start doing their testing, and they want to make sure it's viable. So they sort of do these mock-up, tests that they send out. They made a quick little video for like a 30-second commercial, and they started testing it. Well, that all came in really fantastic. The numbers were really great. Then we came down to the product, getting it manufactured. Can we get it manufactured and keep the cost down? I looked into a little bit of that on my own. Once I was doing and getting to the end of all my prototypes, the same gentleman that helped me with all my CAD drawings had access to individuals in China. So I started checking into that and also checking into the United States. Number one thing was about tooling. What is that going to cost? The tooling to get the mold to create the product, and as a new entrepreneur, a new inventor, I had to go the China way because it was more inexpensive. It was almost 3 times the amount in the U.S. to get my tooling done, and as a new inventor, I didn't have that sort of capital to just keep going and spend money. So I had to sort of, figure out how I'm going to do this in a more reasonable manner. But going back to the DRTV, so what was happening in that process, we just couldn't get that price point down for them to move forward, for them that was going to be able to work for them. So in DRTV and things like that, as most people know, and if you don't know, I'm sure Brian has told you guys many a time, but most of those companies work off a 4 or 5 times factor, right? So I couldn't get my product made for $4 and have it be a quality enough product to be able to sell it for 20. So in their eyes, the numbers weren't going to work for them because it's all about cost of, your return on your investment for DRTV. They're spending so much money per minute on air, and what are they going to get a return for that? So that thing just sort of fell apart just like that. Then it was gone. It just then it was, a few days later, it was crickets. I was like, now what? Now I'm going back to literally starting over from ground zero. And I really took that to heart. So I really started educating myself. What was my next step going to be? And again, back to the internet, back to talking to people, back to people that have actually had products and actually had them produced, and talking to them a little bit about what directions to go and not go, because I myself, I wanted to stop the bleeding of spending all this money because I've already spent it on patents and got that far with it, and oversight doing it again, I probably wouldn't have rushed in to do my patents right off the bat. I would have waited. I would have really seen where it needed to be before I'd started spending money on that, because I found out real quickly as I move on in this little conversation, I did get picked up and ended up licensing this product to a very large company that we did tweak it a little bit at that point. So what I'm saying, going back to spending the money on the patents, well, we had to retweak it, and now I had to go back and file for a 3rd utility patent. And so, sometimes it's best to wait because you never know how this is going to end up in the marketplace. Whether you're going to get it licensed or you're going to try and sell it to big box and do it on your own. A lot of times they're going to want to tweak it, and now the money you initially spent didn't do you so well. So those types of things I had to learn about and move forward.
So, Michael, you're at a point where you are manufacturing, you spent the money on the tooling. Tell us what kind of success you've had so far with the distribution and it sounds like you've been through a lot to get to where you are today. So quickly tell us about where your distribution is.
Yeah, so again, going back to having an actual manufactured and built in China, you have a certain amount of waiting time or waiting game there. Every time you put an order in, you're dealing with the fact that they're overseas, and so you're anywhere from say 6 weeks to 12 weeks to get your product made and back here landed, so that you can do something with it and get it out there. I was very fortunate at that point of continuing to go back and do some of the trade shows that I went to, and I would demo like crazy. I built a really sort of elaborate demo wall, and I can remember pre-COVID, because I launched this late in 2019, right? We were back at the houseware shows in Chicago, had a great experience there. I demoed this product over 15,000 times in 4 days. There was 2 of us doing it, literally back to back. People were coming in the booth. They wanted to demo it. They wanted to see it. They were all excited. And hold and behold, when we were doing that during that process, well, who came in the booth? All of a sudden it was, it was the home shopping channels. It was QVC. QVC came in and said, have you ever thought of getting this on air? And have you ever, how far are you along with your product? And we had a little conversation, and, fast forward a little bit, I ended up getting this on QVC, which was quite a little battle in itself, going through the process of actually getting there and sitting down with their buyers and getting your product accepted, and then going, okay, now do I have enough product to meet their needs? So we had to make sure that we were going to get that product settled and landed, so we ordered a container of product. I got accepted by QVC, had my very first launch, it was February, March of 2020 or 2020. Very first show we sold out on QVC. It's very exciting. Very fast 8 minutes. The producer says go, and then you go, and the time's up in 8 minutes, and you ask yourself what just happened. And the numbers came in the next day, and we sold out the very first time. And then on those types of platforms, it's all about how many dollars you're doing per minute, and not how many units. So it's all about the dollar amount for them. If you surpass that, then you get back on. And just happy to say, pretty blessed today that we're still doing QVC after a full year. And that was moving into COVID. And the first thing that I asked myself was, how are people going to, spend expendable income that they don't have during COVID? Because, everybody was out of work. Everybody was not really spending and getting out there in the public. And I got to tell you, the viewers and they really stepped up, and they actually, they actually loved the product, and were buying it. And we were on every other week, and knock on wood, we're still going now in 2021. Halfway through 2020, we got picked up by HSN. So now we're doing 2 platforms back to back. And it's been exciting. It's been a really humbling experience to really find out how many people really loved and liked your product. So, the whole QVC thing.
Yep.
And the whole TV thing really, that really gave me the confirmation that, wow, this really is a viable product. There is really a need. There is really, a big section of the population that really wants it. So
it is a great feeling. I get to share that with you. So QVC is amazing. It really is.
Yeah.
It's a great platform. So Michael, you're at a point where you've had this success, and there's other inventors that are out there. There's people that are watching and listening with ideas, whether they've had them in the past or they have them now. If you could just quickly give us some words of wisdom, tell us what it is that can keep us moving forward.
Yeah, the first thing I want to say is, and we all kind of talk about this, the one thing that I tell people that I get involved with is, you got to believe in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, nobody's going to believe in your product. So you really got to believe in yourself. You have to have a passion for what you're doing, especially if you're going to start inventing, and you got to really believe in the process. There is no get-rich-quick guide for inventing. You've just got to get yourself out there, step into it. They call it first to market for that one reason. It's all about getting out there and getting it first and getting out there. It's not about when I want to get up off the couch next week and maybe start working on it. It's working on it every single day. It's having that passion. It's spending the time and understanding that there is a process to this. And it's not a very quick process. If you put the time, the effort in, and never give up, I got to tell you, the returns are wonderful, and it will happen.
Excellent. Well, Thank you so much, Michael, for joining us. Michael Van Horst, Push and Hang. Give us a website, give us something to follow you, or keep an eye on what you're up to.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I've got a new store that I just landed online not even less than 4 weeks ago. It's simply pushandhang.com. So you can go right to the store. You'll see all the 3 different products and tons of videos and FAQs and things like that. So it's a great way to go check it out and get an experience for Push and Hang, and you can go from there.
Thank you so much, Michael. Congratulations. And for all of you who are listening and watching, keep on inventing. Thank you from the Got Invention Show. Have a great day.